Now, in this session, we are going to discuss here the muscles of the face, more commonly known as the muscles of facial expression. Now, the muscles of the facial expression, making expression on the face basically is not their prime action, or you can say it is not their primary action. Making facial expression is basically their side effects, because the muscles of the face, nature has in fact put them, because on the face we have the vital organs, and these vital organs are guarded by certain flaps or certain other parts of the face, and these parts of the face are to be controlled, either open or close, to expose those vital organs. These organs in fact are monitored, or they are closed or opened gently or forcefully by means of these muscles, and during that forceful or gentle closing of those organs which are guarding the vital parts of your face, certain expressions are in fact come onto the face here. That is why these muscles are sometimes called as the muscles of facial expression, as if these muscles' prime action is actually facial expression. Their prime action is not a facial expression. Facial expression is their side effects. They are their, you say, their additional effects or additional action. Their prime action is to control those parts of the face which are guarding the vital organs which the nature has put here in the face area, in the facial area, like the mouth. The mouth is guarded by the lips, and these lips are opened or closed by means of the muscles, and during their closure and opening, certain expressions are evident on the face here. That is why these muscles, basically their action is to close and open the lips, close and open the mouth, to expose the tongue and the mouth here, tongue and the teeth and the jaws, or the mouth or the oral cavity, to expose the oral cavity. Because to open the oral cavity, to use the oral cavity, lips are to be moved wide apart, so that the oral fissure actually is created, and oral fissure is created and food is introduced through that oral fissure into the oral cavity. So these are the muscles of the face, basically their action is like this. Now, in the muscles of the face, which organs they are present, like for example in the oral cavity. If the oral cavity is there, so oral cavity is at the mouth is guarded here by the lips. So lips have to be moved, either closed to bring them closer to each other, to close the oral fissure. As the mouth is closed, the mouth closures are required. And if for example we want to open the oral cavity to create the oral fissure, so lips are to be moved away from each other. So elevator of the upper lip and the depressor of the lower lips are required, and these will be the muscles of the face. And at the same time, if you are actually discussing these muscles of the face, we do not have just these the openers of the mouth and the closers of mouth. Similarly, we have the eyeball also, vital organ, and eyeball is guarded here by the eyelids, and these eyelids are to be moved away from each other, upper and lower eyelid, to create here the fissure, that is called the palpebral fissure. For this purpose, this is called the eye opener, to expose the eyeball. For this purpose, you need the muscles, and for closing them, you need again separate muscles for them. And during their closing and opening, sometimes you see the some expressions are created, some expressions they come onto the face here. But the expression is not their prime action. We said it is not their primary action. This is something that is additionally achieved during the use of these muscles. That is why we call them their side effects. These expressions are the side effects. But these expressions are so fascinating, you can say. So people are more interested in the you can say in the facial expression, so that the muscles are named as the muscles of facial expression. But these are not the muscles of facial expression. Basically, it is not the primary action is the facial expression. So you should not you try, preferably do not call them the muscles of facial expression. You call them the muscles of the face. That is a better name, though the muscles of facial expression is a more famous name for these muscles. And similarly, we have got certain other organs also, like the nose. Nose are guarded here by the nostrils. Though the nostrils we cannot close, but at least the nostrils can be dilated or compressed. For this purpose, we have the muscles. Similarly, we have got the ear. Ear is guarded here by the auricle. This is external organ which you see that And if this ear is guarded by the auricles here, so auricles can be moved, but in a human being usually auricles do not move too much here, though the muscles are there. But in certain other animals, you see higher vertebrates, the auricles they move without even moving the head and the neck, the auricles they move. That is why their muscles they are pretty stronger here, but in case of human being, you will see that these auricular muscles they are less prominent. They are not working, they are not moving the auricles as such, because we can skillfully move the neck and the head towards the target seen here. That is why the auricles usually the auricular muscles are not that strong enough to move individually the auricles without even moving the head. So, usually human being they turn their face here, moving the neck and target the that scene of vision or which they are actually aim to see. Now, here the muscles of the face which you are seeing here, the muscles of the face basically we have probably in some of the lectures we have told you that the entire muscles of the head and neck can be divided into two main groups, you can say head and neck muscles. You see that, for example, the muscles of head and neck, if you are writing here. So, I am actually giving you here, this is muscles of the head and neck. So, muscles of head and neck, you can divide them into the muscles of the neck and muscles of the head. So, these are the muscles of head muscles and the neck muscles. As far the neck muscles are concerned, we have already told you, you can actually divide them into the superficial muscles that we did in the last classes probably. This is called the superficial muscles and the deep muscles. Deep muscles are also called the prevertebral. And superficial muscles you can divide them, the muscles which you can actually touch here under the skin, this is almost subcutaneous. These are the muscles you can divide them into such a way that you can say a posterior group. As a posterior group, we have just one muscle on the posterior side is called the trapezius. Another the lateral, we do not have lateral group, we have just one, is called the sternocleidomastoid muscle. And we have got the anterior group of the muscles, and in anterior group we have a lot of muscles here, which is called the supra and infra head. Supra head and infra head muscles. In supra head muscles, we have already told you there are 4 muscles here in the supra head. One is called say stylohead, another was the digastric, third was a mylohyoid, and fourth was genuoid. And as far the infrahead muscles are concerned, 4 more. You say sternohyoid, another was a sternothyroid, yet another was the thyrohyoid, and fourth was the omohyoid. These are the muscles of say muscles of your neck. But as far the muscles of the head are concerned, we have given you some idea that the muscles of the head can be divided again into 2 portions here, highly skilled, you say less skilled. You can divide them, these are all skeletal muscles which you are actually discussing here. This is called the highly skilled and less skilled. And as far the highly skilled and less skilled are concerned, you can see, say highly skilled or you can say less skilled. For example, you can say okay highly skilled, or you can say okay less skilled. As far as the less skilled muscles are concerned, these are those muscles which develop from the pharyngeal arches incidentally. Developed from the pharyngeal arches, we have basically 6 pharyngeal arches, but because in the human being the 5th pharyngeal arch it regresses, it degenerates. So, only 4 or 5 pharyngeal arches they retain. So, human being retains 5 pharyngeal arches, pharyngeal arch number 1, 2, 3, 4, because 5th is not there, so immediately it will be 6 now. So, we have got the, and all these less skilled muscles in fact they develop from these 6 pharyngeal arches, means 5 pharyngeal arches finally. So, as far your less skilled muscles are concerned, so muscle developing from the first pharyngeal arch, you say first pharyngeal arch muscles, these are called the muscles of mastication. muscle of mastication. The second pharyngeal arch, these are Kadi muscles of the face. You can say, okay, facial expression, because they are more famous with this name. These are two big groups now. You can say the third group, actually not a group, it's a single muscle here. The third is just a single muscle. This is called stylopharyngeus. And then you will come here again to the groups now. The third, this is the fourth group now. These are again big group. This is cadipharyngeal muscles. And sixth group is, because fifth arch is not there, it is the laryngeal group. This is laryngeal group. In this now, you can see that this is the group which you are actually discussing. The facial expression muscle. This is the second pharyngeal group. We say that these are the arches, these are the less skilled muscles, you can say, in our classification, because we have got the here the more skilled or highly skilled muscles also. These are two groups. These are highly skilled muscles. In the highly skilled muscles, there are two groups here. These are those muscles which are in fact moving those organs which have highly skilled, too much under control movements, you can say. These are two organs only on the face. One is the tongue, which is moved for the purpose of speech, and another is the eyeball, because eyeballs are two and the movements are conjugated. For this conjugation of the movements, because these movements will be for this purpose, conjugation of the movements for highly controlled muscles are required here. That is why you call such thing as the highly skilled muscles. So, for this purpose, we told you that there will be two muscle groups will be there. Number one muscle group will be the muscles of the tongue, and number two group will be extraocular muscles. Extraocular muscles means which will move the eyeball. These are the two muscle groups which we will discuss more in detail when we will be discussing the tongue, and then we will discuss the eyeball. Muscles of mastication we will be discussing when we will pick up the mandible and other things here. Stylopharyngeus and pharyngeal muscles we will discuss when we are discussing the pharynx, and laryngeal muscles we will discuss when we are discussing the larynx. Means facial muscles you can discuss individually out of this, and all these five groups of unskilled, I say less skilled muscles, and two groups of skilled muscles. There are 7 groups of muscles, skeletal muscles present in the head, and there are these two big groups which is superficial and deep muscles, they are present in case of the neck here. This informal classification of the muscles, in fact you can grip in your hands, and there is no other muscle group we will actually aid in this. These are the muscles of your head and neck, and in this muscles of head and neck you can easily pick up now the facial muscles. That facial muscle is the second pharyngeal arch group, and each pharyngeal arch group will have its own personal nerve. Now you can say mastication has the mandibular division of trigeminal nerve. Facial muscle, it has got the facial nerve. Stylopharyngeus has the glossopharyngeal. Pharyngeal has got mostly 2 branches coming from the vagus, and laryngeal has the 3rd branch coming from the vagus. So you can initially say that these are the facial muscles, these are the skeletal muscles, though they are less skilled, but they are skeletal, developing from the mesenchyme of the pharyngeal arches. This time incidentally is the second pharyngeal arch, and all of them will be supplied here by the facial nerve, branches of the facial nerve, except 1 or 2 which we will be discussing. They are appearing on the face, they are located in the face, even they will be included in the muscles of the facial expression. Still they are not supplied by the facial nerve. This is only one you can say, and that we will actually be discussing. So this is something that is called the facial, about the facial, and facial is that skeletal muscle, because it is totally different from other skeletal muscles. You see usually the skeletal muscle they develop from somites, but this is developing from mesenchyme. And those somatic muscles we see developing from somites, usually they are lying deep to deep fascia, but this is the muscle which is developing from mesenchyme. Like mesenchymal structures, it is not lying deep to deep fascia, it is lying in the superficial fascia. So this group of muscles is lying in the superficial fascia. Means just cut the skin underneath, you will have the superficial fascia. So they are embedded within the superficial fascia. So and in the superficial fascia, because under the skin, why the nature has actually caused this muscle group of the facial expression or the facial muscles here under the skin, the reason is that because those flaps which are in fact guarding our vital organs. These flaps in fact are made up of the skin and superficial fascia, and these are to be moved. So, nature has caused the deep fascia to get disappeared from the fascia. Face does not have deep fascia. Means immediately under the skin we have superficial fascia, means fat. We do not have any deep fascia. You consider the deep fascia was there, it has actually melted, has got mixed with the superficial fascia. So, if the muscle was, for example, if you think, for example, if you assume the muscle was lying deep to the deep fascia, because of the disappearance of the deep fascia, now the muscle is totally embedded within the musculature, within your superficial fascia. So, all these facial muscles, they are lying within the superficial fascia. So, their contraction can cause the movement of those organs which are guarding the vital organs of your face here. So, auricle movement, it is the skin and other things here. So move the auricle, move the nostrils, move the lips, move the eyelids. These muscles are required to be instituted, required to be actually deployed within the superficial fascia. So, this is something introduction about these muscles which you have actually seen. And now with this you come here and will watch here these muscles, how these muscles in fact are being you have classified, how these muscles will be classified, how these muscles you have actually watched here. You see these muscles a general group here. The muscles in fact you can divide them, and you can divide these muscles into certain groups like we have told you already. Those muscles which are working on auricles, this will be the group. Those muscles which are working on the eyelids, this is another group. Those muscles which are in fact working on the lips here, this will be the third group, and those muscles which are working on the nostrils, this will be our fourth group. So, we have the four groups of the muscles in fact which you are going to watch here. And out of these muscles, if you see the auricle, I told you that the auricles cannot be in fact moved too much here. So, these muscles will be rudimentary, and in these auricles, if you see these auricles here, so these auricular muscles in fact will be understood. So, these are less prominent, you can say they are not too strong muscles here. These are four groups of the muscles together, you call them muscles of the face or muscles of facial expression. In that muscles of the group, first of all you see that the muscles of the auricles here. As far the auricular muscles are concerned, muscles of the auricle you can see, because they are not actually moving too much, you can't close auricles, you cannot open auricles, you can just move the auricles little behind to pull them little posterior, little up, a little down here, not even the anterior, because the anterior to the auricle is lying the parotid gland. We cannot institute here a muscle here over the parotid gland. As such, you see this muscle now. See, this is called the auricularis superior. Number one muscle you are actually seeing here is the auricularis superior. This is the muscle which is called the auricularis superior. Number one is this muscle. See number two. This is auricularis anterior. This is second muscle you are seeing here. Auricularis anterior. The muscle nomenclature is like this: auricularis anterior. You can't call it the anterior auricular muscle. You better call them auricularis. This is technical language. You see, this is auricularis anterior. Gluteus maximus. You will not call it the maximum gluteal muscle, you say gluteus maximus. This is called the auricularis anterior. And similarly, we have got auricularis posterior also. Watch this, the third muscle is this. This can pull the auricle back, but usually these muscles are rudimentary. You can't actually use these muscles too much here. This is called here. I am giving you the most simpler thing, simplest of all the things first. The simplest of all the things is like this. These are the three muscles regarding the action, if possibly any action, if it is possible, on the auricle. These are called the auricular muscles, three auricular muscles. Come back, you the second group is the muscles of The nostrils, muscles working on the nostrils. Nostrils are those organs which are guarding the vital cavity inside, that is called the nasal cavity. This nose, that is called external nose basically. You see external nose which moves. This is made up of the cartilages. The part of the nose that raised from the surface, that raised from the face forward here, that is called pointed thing, that is called the external nose. And that external nose and nasal cavity starts after that. And that external nose which we are actually giving you here idea, this external nose is made up of the two chambers here, because inside the nasal cavity has the two chambers, left and right, identical. And if the two chambers are there, so it means outside the nostrils will be two also. And these nostrils are guarded here by these are made up of here, just like your eyelids, the nostrils, they are made up of the cartilages here. And these cartilages which you are looking at on the sides here, if you see in that area, on the sides we have, if you watch in this diagram, see here, on the sides we have got cartilage, and this cartilage which you see, which is around the nostrils are the holes here, the external nares, around that hole this cartilage is called the alar cartilage. This is called alar cartilage. And the cartilages which in fact are on either side here, these are called the lateral cartilages. This is called alar, alar means wing, this is called alar cartilage. They make your external nose. And in these muscles you see that muscles are working on them also, nostrils muscles. And in fact the muscles which will work on the nostrils, they are the one which you are actually watching here, this one here, red, this green color, this muscle's name is the nasalis muscle, is a nasalis. So, because muscles are here, this green color which you are actually watching is called the nasalis muscle. This nasalis has the two parts. One part is this, which is taking origin from the maxilla and is inserted here to the ala of the nose. This is here, and when this contracts, the ala of the nose will be pulled laterally to increase the diameter of the nostrils. That is why these muscles are called dilator part of the nasalis. This is called the dilator nares. You see, this is called dilator nares because it dilates the nostrils. But the second part of the nasalis, it is taking origin here from the maxilla, and it will come here over the lateral cartilage and will form a kind of a ref. It's kind of a raphe here, nasal raphe you can say. It is not raphe as it's interdigitate, but they will be over the bridge of the nose here, and when they will contract here, you see cartilage will be compressed here. That is why that is part you see in this. This part is called understand, this part will be called as the compressor nares. This is the second part of the nasalis. The transverse part of the nasalis also this is called compressor nares. Means dilator nares and compressor nares. These both are the parts of the two components of this nasalis muscle here. Not only this, but at the same time, sometimes it is actually said that right here from this area, I am actually giving you another, you see this is compressor nares which I was telling you. You see nasalis muscle is the two parts. One part you know that is called this one. You see this one, which is attached here to the ala of the nose, so that the ala of the nose on both sides can be moved apart, so the nostrils in fact can be dilated. This is the part that is called the dilator nares. But this one you know that this nasalis second part, which is attached here to the lateral cartilage, does not in fact interdigitate with the other sided, but you see when this compresses along with the other side muscle here, the lateral cartilages will be compressed, so the diameter of the nostrils will be narrowed down. That is why this muscle is called the compressor nares. So, compressor nares and dilator nares. This compressor nares and this one dilator nares, both together are called the nasalis muscle. But at the same time, nasalis has third part also. What this here is also very important. This muscle takes origin from takes origin from the maxilla. Here is the anterior nasal spine, if you remember. This is upper jaw. These are the alveolar processes. Close to that will be the incisive fossa here. This takes origin from the incisive fossa and will be actually coming up here, forming is a narrow string here that will be inserted here to the central part of the nasal septum. So, this is and other side also. Central part of the nasal septum. So, this central part of the nasal septum actually be forming like here. See this. Because this muscle, when this muscle will contract, you see, when contracts, it pulls the septum downward. That's why it depresses the septum. Septum of what? Septum of nose. That's why I call the nasal septum. That's why this muscle's name is, and you know that the muscles are named in such a way that the first will be the action of those muscles, because it is actually depressing. So, you say it is a depressor. First is the action. Then is the organ upon which the action is being done. The action is being done here on the septum. So, we call them septi. Depressor, septi. But these two words will not be sufficient. The reason is that because we don't know which septum. Because this is nasal septum, that's why we call them nasi. We say depressor septi nasalis, we say. It's called the depressor septi nasalis. And this is sometimes, even because it is actually coming here and it is fuses sometimes here, you see, with the LR part of the nasalis. So, this is also sometimes included as the part of the nasalis, the third part of nasalis you can consider it, but the action is like here. That means you can draw your lips down here, so that your nasal septum can be pulled down. This is called the depressor septi nasalis, the third part of your nasalis muscle here. Then another very important muscle you are actually seeing here, which is over this area, which will be over this area, and it will be going here over this, means this is the part of the central depressed part of the frontal bone, that is called the glabella. You see, central portion on the bone is called the glabella. So, this is in the glabella region, and then it comes down here over the bridge of the nose, and you see in this depressed area where the 4 bones, I say 5 bones meet. From above it is coming your frontal bone. On two sides it is actually coming here your two nasal bones, and from here is coming the nasal part of the frontal part of your maxilla. So, 4 bones from below and 1 bone from above, they will fuse here in the center, and that area is called the nasion. And over the nasion, this glabular depressed area is called this glabella. So, this muscle which you are actually watching, this muscle is called the procerus muscle, the procerus muscle. Procerus muscle again very important, because it is actually giving you some expression on the face also. If you see this kind of expression, of the dislike expression, you see this here. Here it was the procerus, because when you contracted the procerus, here, you see some longitudinal ridges are here, transverse ridges will be created over the creases will be created over the skin here, and will give you the idea, you say, give you the expression of dislike here. This is called the procerus muscle. Another muscle of yours, see, this is here muscle which you are showing, this is giving this impression. That's why we call them the muscles of, this is one of the muscles of the nose. Okay, now in the second part now, we will be discussing the muscles of the eyelids. The muscles of the eyelid is the second group, and in muscles of eyelids means we want to either open the eyes, means to expose the eyeball, or we want to shut the eyes, means to close the eyeball here. Close the eyeball here means if you want to shut the eyeball, for example, if you close the eyes means eyelids are to be moved closer to each other, so that the fissure or the gap between these two eyelids, it is called the palpebral fissure, that disappears, and eyeballs will be buried inside the orbit here, and there will be closed, you can say, the screen, or you say the curtain will be dropped, you can say. But when you are actually lifting the, I say, creating the palpebral fissure to expose the eyeball here, so you have to move the eyelids apart from each other, away from each other, and in this whole movements, the most, you say, active movement is that of the upper eyelid, not the lower one. So, usually upper eyelid is very, very important. You see muscles of eyelid, consider here, you see, you can divide them into the two groups, and called the eye openers. Eye openers means which will be those which are depressing the lower eyelid or elevating the upper eyelid, and obviously the active eyelid is the upper eyelid. So, we need the elevators of the upper eyelid, and we say elevators of the upper eyelid, the name of that muscle will be very, very important. This is one only single muscle in your face, considered to be the muscle of facial expression or muscle of the face, but this is the only muscle that is not supplied by the facial nerve. and this is supplied by the third cranial nerve, that is called the oculomotor nerve. That's why if anybody asks you that all the muscles of the facial expression, all the muscles of the face, they are supplied by the facial nerve, wrong, one is not, and that one is that one which in fact is a very important eye opener, and this eye opener means it will elevate the upper eyelid. If it elevates the upper eyelid means it will be elevating the upper eyelid, means it gently elevates the upper eyelid, means gently you just open the eyes at the time when you actually wake up here, we just elevate the eyelid here gently, but you can forcefully elevate the eyelids also to in fact increase the, you just increase the diameter, increase the size of the palpebral fissure to make your whole eyeball exposed here. That is the forceful exposure, but this will be the gentle elevator of the upper eyelids. That is why this muscle can be called as, so eye openers you can divide them into two, gentle opener, but it is opener obviously. So it is opener means either it depresses the lower eyelid or it elevates the upper eyelid, but this is because the upper eyelid is active, more active. That is why we need a muscle for the upper eyelid. That is why it is called the elevator. That is why you call them levator. Number 1, action. Number 2, organ upon which this action has been done. You call it eyelid. Anything related to the eyelid is called the palpebar. That is why I call them palpebrae. Levator, palpebrae. But because the palpebars are, you see, eyelids are two. One is upper, another is lower. So third word is to be put here also. And that is because it is the upper eyelid. That is why you call them superioris. So name of this muscle is the levator palpebrae superioris. This is the only muscle in the facial expressions which is not supplied here by the facial nerve, and if it is not supplied by the facial nerve, that indicates it has not come from the second pharyngeal arch. If it has not come from second pharyngeal arch, means it has not come from second pharyngeal arch and it is supplied here by the oculomotor nerve. This indicates that, means oculomotor nerve is not one of those nerves which are supplying the pharyngeal arch muscles here, less skilled muscles here. So that means this levator palpebrae superioris, it does not belong to the muscles coming from your 5 pharyngeal arches. Means this is the muscle not coming from the 5 pharyngeal arches, means they must be coming here from the skilled group now. And skilled group are the two, either tongue or eyeball. So this muscle is actually among the groups of extraocular muscles. So we have 6 extraocular muscles, and at the same time we have this 7th muscle also, which is in fact moving the upper eyelid upward, elevating the upper eyelid. This is a muscle, this is included in a embryologic point of view, I would say from our informal classification point of view, this is the muscle of skilled group, you can say. And this is not the muscle coming from the, because it is not supplied by facial pharyngeal arch, you see from the facial nerve, so it is not a pharyngeal arch muscle, obviously it is not from second pharyngeal arch. If it is not from second pharyngeal arch, it should be from the first, or it should be from the third, fourth or sixth. No, it is not from them, because it is not supplied here by the mandibular division of trigeminal nerve, first pharyngeal arch nerve, or from the glossopharyngeal nerve, third pharyngeal arch nerve, or the vagus nerve from fourth and sixth pharyngeal. It is not supplied by that, means it is not the less skilled muscle group here. This is, so second group is the skilled, and the skill is either the tongue supplied by the hypoglossal, not, obviously it will not move the tongue, so it is not moving the tongue, so it will be moving either the eyeball, or here not eyeball though, but it is moving the eyelid here, related to the eyeball. This is called the levator palpebrae superioris. So gentle opener is this now, you see this is here a muscle, very, very important muscle clinically. This muscle basically, you are watching this green muscle called the levator palpebrae superioris. And this levator palpebrae superioris, I will tell you that it has got two very important parts. Very important parts here. This one part which you see, it is almost 95% of your total belly of this muscle is this is skeletal. It is taking origin from the undersurface of, I say from the roof of a orbit here. This muscle, and because here are lying the eyelids, and eyelids are made up of, their structure is made up of the dense connective tissue, tough dense connective tissue, that is called, see this will be called as the tarsal plates. So this muscle which we are actually showing you here, that will be inserted here onto the interior surface of the tarsal plate. By the time it reaches the interior surface of tarsal plate, it will become now aponeurotic. And we will show you this in the next diagram. It will become aponeurotic. When it will pull, upper eyelid will be lifted up here. This is the function of this muscle here, supplied here by the third cranial nerve. Only facial muscle is supplied by the third cranial nerve. CN3. This is oculomotor nerve. So, this is a third cranial nerve which you are actually watching here. This is levator palpebrae superioris. This is one portion which you are showing here. Another portion which is the smooth portion. This is called the molar muscle, and that will be molar muscle which we show you here. This is the muscle which is hardly, you say, 5%, which taking origin again here from the undersurface of the roof of your orbit, and it will be coming down here and be inserted here to the upper border of the tarsal plate. This is a involuntary muscle supplied here by the autonomic nervous system, and because it is pulling the eyelid hardly 5%, you can say it is pulling the eyelid like this, hardly 5%. So, this muscle will be called as this muscle. Understand? So, this is the muscle which is actually called the molar muscle, 5% hardly it will be. So, this levator palpebrae superioris, I told you that 95% part of this muscle is voluntary, but this green color which we have shown you here, this is involuntary. This is called molar muscle, and that will be also taking origin from the undersurface of the roof of the orbit, and will be inserted here to the superior part of the tarsal plate, not on the interior surface, but the superior part of the tarsal plate. This can also pull it, but hardly 5%. So, loss of the function of this autonomic, because this is controlled by the autonomic nerves, and autonomic nerves, because it is pulling the eyelid upward here, so it is opening the eyeball for more light to enter inside, and this will happen in the emergency. This will happen in the emergency means you can say this is the muscle supplied here by sympathetic nervous system. So, if the sympathetic nervous system is affected, this muscle, this called Muller's muscle, that will become paralyzed. So, it will not affect the eyelid too much here, but partially the upper eyelid will be drooped down. You call it this drooping down as the ptosis, but not the full ptosis here will be, this is called the partial ptosis. This happens in the Horner syndrome. But you see, if the third nerve is paralyzed here, you see 95% drooping of upper eyelid will take place here. This is called the complete ptosis. This is partial ptosis. And this is called complete ptosis because 90% of the action of the eyelid will be affected here, upper eyelid will be affected. This is called the muscle. This muscle is called the group of muscle. You say this muscle is called the levator palpebrae superior, very important muscle here. And if your third cranial nerve is involved here, it is paralyzed here. But it's one of very important nerves that is actually paralyzed in the when there is the raised intraocular pressure. But in the raised intraocular pressure, usually parasympathetic fibers of the third nerve, they are affected first. But later on there is the compression, and then your even voluntary fibers also are affected. And this will lead here to the complete ptosis here. So, complete ptosis will be there because of this. But when the facial nerve is affected, when the facial nerve palsy is there, upper eyelid will not droop down here. All other muscles will be paralyzed, may be paralyzed. All other muscles will be paralyzed, but the levator palpebrae superior is the only muscle that will retain its power, because this is not supplied by the facial nerve. So, drooping of upper eyelid will not take place. But when the third nerve palsy is there, when the third nerve paralysis is there, no muscle of the face will be affected, but the drooping of upper eyelid will take place here. So, drooping of the upper eyelid indicates third nerve palsy. This is one muscle which you are actually watching. You watch these muscles here. This is the muscle, this is the tarsal plate which has been shown you here, and this is the tarsal gland inside, meibomian gland we call this. This is called tarsal gland, and here you can see the muscle was taking origin, and then is the becomes aponeurotic to be inserted here to the anterior surface of the tarsal plate, you see, under the skin and subcutaneous tissue. But this muscle, which is a smooth muscle, that will be inserted here under the superior border of the superior tarsal plate, means this is the dense connective tissue or skeleton, so called skeleton of the upper eyelid. This will be inserted here. This is a very important muscle and it has got an enormous clinical implication. We do not have just gentle openers, but we have forceful opener also. Watch this muscle. This is called the occipitofrontalis muscle. It has got two bellies in front and two bellies behind. This is the front bellies, you see. This is called the muscle, we say this muscle is called, these are the frontal bellies of the occipit. So, the frontal bellies, they are connected with the occipital bellies by means of the epicranial aponeurosis. This is the third layer of the scalp, and these frontal bellies, they are fused with the closures of the eyelids here, these closures of the eyelids which you have actually seen here. And so, these frontal bellies, when they will contract, will pull the closures of the eyeball upward to open the eyelids here forcefully. The forceful opener it is, that is why I call it. And during this whole process, you see the ridges will be like the transverse ridges will be created here. If the transverse ridges will be created on the forehead, so you can say furrowing on the forehead is actually the function of this. And with this purpose, if you see furrowing of this, so you can say not just the furrowing of the forehead, I am saying transverse ridges on the forehead will be created by this, but at the same time you see expression will be, in fact, be additionally, side effect of this muscle will be additionally providing expression on the face. This is the expression of horror or surprise. This is the function of the frontalis bellies also, expression also you see, but it basically its function is opening the eyeball forcefully. Come back here to see the eye closers. Again, very important muscles, you see eye closers here. When they are not, they are paralyzed here, eyes can't be, you say eyelids cannot be closed, you say blinking cannot be done. And this can be done both ways, you see, superficially, I say gently as well as forcefully. But forcefully and gently muscle is same. It has the two different parts though, but the muscle is same. You see this muscle here, you see rounded muscle, you are actually seeing this. This muscle, this is called orbicular muscle. You see rounded circle like muscles called the orbicular muscles here. So, this is orbiculus oculi. Oculi means eyeball, related to the eyeball. Those related to the eyelids obviously, but it is called the orbiculus oculi. Oculi, what do you see? Oculomotor. So, this is what we call here the orbiculus oculi muscle. Orbiculus oculi, it has two parts. Now, you can say first part which will be just adherent to the tarsal plates of the eyelids here. You have removed the skin and you have removed the superficial fascia, and you are watching here this muscle here. This is muscle. If I am actually showing you here two tarsal plates, upper tarsal plate, I say lower tarsal plate. These are the skeleton of you can say of the eyelids here. This is upper tarsal plate, lower tarsal plate. This muscle which I am actually showing you here red color, this is the palpebral part of this muscle, palpebral part of the orbiculus oculi. And in this palpebral part, you see the muscles are very thin slips. So, very thin slips, and these muscles are passing over the, I say muscles are passing and these you see, these muscles are and if you see here, these muscles are passing over the eyelid, I say over the superior tarsal plate, and the muscles are passing over the superior tarsal plate. If the muscles are passing over the superior tarsal plate and the muscles are also passing under the inferior tarsal plate, see this here again, muscles they are passing over the superior tarsal plate, they are thin slips over the inferior tarsal plate, and when they reach on the medial angle of the eye, there is a you say thickened nodule type of a thing you see, that is fibrotendinous, that is called the medial palpebral ligament, and it takes origin from them. And when it reaches to the lateral side, they interdigitate with each other. Another raphe is created here. This is called the lateral palpebral raphe. You have got a lot of raphes, you see that. We have already seen here, this is a lateral palpebral raphe. At the same time, you see here, when the two mylohyoid muscles in fact fuse in the middle, mylohyoid raphe was created. And you will see here also, there is a raphe that is called pterygomandibular raphe. You will see this another also. 3 raphes are present in the head and neck. And similarly, one raphe, if you see, if you remember, in pelvis was also present when the two bulbospongiaceous muscle, in case of male, they are fused. In fact, the two bulbs are fused to make a single bulb, and the single bulb was supported here by means of the two muscles which unite in the middle by means of a raphe, again that is called the bulbospongiaceous raphe. And maybe even 2 more raphes you will see here. In the pharynx also there is the pharyngeal raphe. The 5 raphes, they are present in the human being. And here you are watching this also, this is called the lateral palpebral raphe. And when these muscles, when these 2 muscles, I say these orbiculus oculi muscle which we are actually showing you here, this is the palpebral part of the orbiculus oculi. This is a gentle closing of your eyeball, gentle closing of your eyelids being carried out by this muscle here. But at the same time, when you want to actually forcefully close your eyelids in such a way that the eyelids will be burrowed, I say your eyeballs should be actually buried inside the orbit in such a way that the eyelashes only tips will be visible. Eyelashes will be buried also. You see this, eyelash tips are being seen here. This is what we call here the orbital part of the orbiculus oculi. Palpebral part, orbital part. Understand? So orbital parts will be there. So palpebral part and orbital parts are there. This is the orbital part which you are seeing. It is making a circle, one circle, just like onion skin. Another circle, yet another, yet another. You see this. This whole muscle together is called the orbicularis oculi muscle. Orbiculus oculi having 2 parts here. And this is giving you the function of you say eye winking also, and you say blinking of the eyes. So blinking of eyes will not be possible when this muscle is paralyzed. I mean the blinking of the eyes or closing of the eyelids will not be possible here. Means when the muscle paralysis, when the facial palsy is there, this one eyelid will be blinking and the other will not be. So other eyelid will not be blinking here. So you see this one eyelid will be blinking, but the other will not be blinking. So there will be loss of the blinking also, inability to blink the eyes, inability to blink the eyelids here. And one eyelid will remain always open here, and open means the spreading of the tears will not take place. So from the lateral angle of the eye, tears will keep on dribbling from that side always, and this will lead here to the injury to the cornea, and also dangerous it will be for the sclera and other things also, because the eyeball will not be shut. So this is called orbicularis oculi muscle here. Orbicularis oculi, I told you that 2 parts are there, palpebral part and orbital part. And palpebral part will give you So, orbiculus oculi will have two parts, the palpebral part that you have seen already, and at the same time we have two parts of the orbiculus oculi. One is called the palpebral part that you are actually seeing here, and another is the orbital part, this one. So, you can see this palpebral as well as orbital part here. So, two parts are there, and this is orbiculus oculi will give you actually the action of the winking, and winking will be the action, means it is a blinking of the eyes, and winking is a kind of expression, but its action will be closing the eyelids here. So, eyelids cannot be closed, and we see the eyelids will remain open, you see, and here the tears will come out of this, and will cause the dryness of eyes also. As for the eye closers, gentle eye closers are concerned, you say, we have already told you that gentle openers and gentle closers you have seen, and here the gentle closers as well as forceful closers you have actually witnessed here. Forceful closer, orbital part, again I told you the muscle is same, but at the same time you see, watch here another muscle which works on the eyelids, it is this. And this muscle is called the corrugator supercilii, means this is a muscle that lying over the, I say, under the skin that overlies, you say, that under the skin which is related here to the eyebrows. So, it means if this muscle is contracting, you see, this muscle is contracting, this is superciliary arch, muscle or the superciliary arch, that will actually cause here a longitudinal ridges here in this glabellar region here. So, you can see this is here, these are longitudinal ridges over the glabellar region it will give here, over the nasion region you can say, not a glabella as such, but over the nasion region it will give you here a kind of ridges here, that will give you here a kind of expression here, though it is related here to some extent to the eyelids, but it is giving you an expression of giving you the expression of the worry or concern, or give you expression of as if you are in a pensive mood, in a thoughtful mood. This is giving this is the muscle that is called the corrugator, this corrugation, wrinkling of the superciliary margins, that is called the corrugator supercilii muscle, again a muscle related to the eyelids here, corrugator supercilii. You see here ridges have been created. This is the second group that you have seen here. As a third group, the muscle related to the auricles, the muscles related to the nostrils, related to the auricles for the anterior, posterior and the superior auricularis muscle, muscles related to the nostrils, that was a dilator nares, compressor nares and depressor septa nasalis, these are three parts of the nasalis, at the same time procerus also. And then another group that is called the muscles related here to the eyes. Eyes means eyes closers, eyes openers. Eyes closers are gentle closers, forceful closers. Eye openers are gentle openers, forceful openers. Gentle closers and forceful closers, you have seen these muscles also. These are certain groups of the muscles which you have actually seen here. Now you are discussing another group of muscles related to the lips now. This is called the muscles of the lips. These are the mouth openers or mouth closers. Muscles of the lips now, and watch these muscles, this is a very big group. Muscles of the mouth openers, you can say, these are those muscles which are moving the lips.
Okay, now this fourth group of muscles is the muscles of the lips. Muscles of lips, you know that these are the two organs which in fact they are guarding the oral cavity. Now the muscles you see, again the lips means upper lip and lower lip. So if you want to regulate the entry into the oral cavity or exit from that, you have to regulate the movements, you say you have to regulate the lips here, means you have to regulate the gap between the lips, that is called the oral fissure. You have to either touch the two lips with each other to abolish the oral fissure here, to close the mouth, that is called, or to open it, means to raise the upper lip and to depress the lower lip and to stretch the angles of the mouth. You have to increase the diameter of the oral fissure to expose the oral cavity according to the needs. So you need the movement, movement of the upper, lower lip and their mouth angles, you see that. So for this purpose you need the three groups of muscles, means in the muscles of the lips means the mouth opener, mouth closer. As far the closing is concerned, we have just one muscle, or you can say assisted by one or two more, but basically to open the mouth we have got a lot of muscles here. You see here muscles of the lips, openers and closers. So watch this here, this is called the mouth openers, you can call it. So mouth openers, out of this you say upper lip elevator, mouth opener means to elevate the upper lip, first group, depress the lower lip, second group, stretch the muscles which work on the angles of the mouth, the third group. So you see this upper lip elevators here. Upper lip elevators, not just one, we have a lot of muscles here which will elevate the upper lip. Look at this. Now in this muscle, first muscle you see, which is elevating the upper lip, means this is in fact elevating the upper lip, means it is merged with or it is fused with the upper lip muscle which is already present, that is the closer. But you see this is green color muscle which is attached to this and it is going here up to the medial angle of the eye. Not only this, but some of the fibers in fact will be attached here to the ala of the nose also. That is why this muscle, when it contracts, this will elevate the upper lip, not just elevate the upper lip, but it will elevate simultaneously the ala of the nose also. That is why this muscle should be called as the elevator of the upper lip and that of the ala also, ala of the nose. So you can say it is the muscle that will be called as the levator. Levator of what? Levator of the lip. So you say labia. But lips are two. Just one labia, this single letter is not alone is enough. So we will add one more word, that is called the superioris, because it is the upper lip. And it is not elevating just the upper lip, but it is elevating the ala of the nose also. That is why you call it ala, means iliac. But ala, iliac. Iliac, ala, but whose ala? Nose ala, means it is nose's ala. That will call the fifth name, it will actually be fifth word will be added to that, is called the nasi. Means elevator of the upper lip and the elevator of the ala of the nose. So elevators will levator word will be used for both of them here. So five word, you see the name with the 5 words will be formed here. This is probably the longest name for any muscle in the body. This is called the levator labiae superioris iliac nasi. This is the first muscle which is in fact is here. Central part of the lip will be elevated by this muscle, and central part of the lip along with the ala of the nose can alone be elevated unilaterally or even the bilaterally. And the levator labiae superioris iliac nasi, it will give you this type of expression also. This is expression with the flaring of the nostrils as it is done during the anger or during the exertion. So you see this is here. So this central part of the lip means lip has been little bit elevated, at the same time ala has been dilated here. This is what we call here the levator labiae superioris, giving this expression of anger, or you can say sometimes expression during exertion also. Levator labiae superioris iliac nasi, these are the expressions have been given by this. So this is what we call here the expressions here. So these are the expressions given by the levator labiae superioris iliac nasi. Watch next muscle after this, after the first muscle which you have seen here, levator labiae superioris iliac nasi. Next muscle, this green color, which is called as the levator labiae superioris. It is simply levator labiae superioris. That will lift a little bit lateral part of the lip also. This green color muscle is called the levator labiae superioris. This is the second muscle of the upper lip elevator. This is the second muscle of the upper lip. Come to the third muscle now. You see this type of muscle, you see levator labiae superioris along with the depressor labiae inferioris. This kind of impression can be created. This is the expression which will be created by depressing the lower lip as well as elevating the upper lip. So depressor labiae inferioris, you will see this muscle with the lower lip muscles, but here I am giving you some impression that levator labia superioris, if it's been actually acted upon, I say it has been acted in conjugation with the depressor labia inferior, this kind of impression will be in fact will be on the face also. See this levator labia superioris which is already present here, and at the same time this is the levator depressor labia inferior. This I will tell you in the lower lip here. Third muscle is this green color muscle, that is called the zygomaticus major muscle. Watch this muscle. This is zygomaticus major, and this second one, this is called zygomaticus minor. But what is the zygomaticus major? The zygomaticus major, it has been, if for example it has been contracting unilaterally, it will give the impression of the dislike. You see again. So if it is unilaterally acting, so if it acts unilaterally, it will give the impression of the dislike. But if it's elevating, say if it is working bilaterally, then it will give the expression of the true smile, because you are elevating or you are I say stretching the lateral parts of the lips bilaterally, means stretching. So it's kind of a true smile expression has been actually given by when the bilaterally zygomaticus minor as well as major, both of them, they contract simultaneously. See zygomaticus major and minor, along with the minor also, I will show you the minor also. But you see zygomaticus major, if it is bilaterally acting, expression of the true smile will be there. Yes, this is lifting on one side, and here it will be lifting if it is on other side. You see it will be kind of a smile will be there. So smiling face will be there. So a true smile happens when zygomaticus major along with the minor, they bilaterally contract. But when it is unilaterally contracting, then it will give the impression of the dislike here. You see zygomaticus minor, I say zygomaticus major unilaterally contracting. See the zygomaticus major also. The previous it was minor, and you see the zygomaticus major here. This was minor. This is the levator palpebrae superioris. This is levator palpebrae superioris iliac nasa. So these are all the upper lip muscles which you are actually seeing here. And I told you that again, if it is unilaterally, it will give dislike. But if it is bilaterally, it will give the true smiling face. You see again, the true smiling face is like this. So it is because of the stretching of your lateral part of the lip. The lateral part of the lip, as a result of stretching the lateral part of the lip by means of the bilateral minor and major zygomaticus working together. This is upper lip elevators. But if we reach the angle of the mouth here, see this angle of the mouth if you are reaching. So this muscle, which is in fact is present on the lateral side here, if it is going upward here, this will be called as the elevator. This is called the elevator, and this elevator is called so this is called the elevator. Elevator, because it is the elevator, so you call the elevator. Elevating what? Angle of mouth. You say angle, you say anguli. Two words are not enough, because angle, we don't know whose angle. Angle of mouth, that's why we call them oris. Oris means oral, oral means. This is called the levator anguli oris. So from this side as well as from this side, it is stretching, means it is actually pulling the angles of the mouth upward, means this happy face has been in fact because of this. So this is called the happy face expression. So this happiness is actually given by this here. You see this is. So this is called the levator anguli oris muscle, the function of levator anguli oris. So you can actually count the muscles like a levator palpebrae, say levator labiae superioris iliac nasa, levator labiae superioris only, zygomaticus minor, zygomaticus major. These are the first, this is second, this is third, this is fourth muscles related to your upper lip on one side, and similarly 4 will be related on that side. It means almost 8 muscles are present on both sides or the upper lip minus angles. And here in the angle has got the levator anguli oris, means here on this side it will be the 5th muscle. Not only this, but at the same time you see over the angle here is another muscle also, which is almost you see it is almost transverse. That muscle is called the risorius muscle. Risorius muscle, when it is stretches here, you see your lips will be like you see stretching here, means they are like this. They are giving you a kind of expression of a false smile also. You see like this, stretching on from sides here, not being raised like a true smile or you say happy face. No, this is giving you a kind of a impression like this. Like you stretching two angles here, you are giving actually the false smile, either false smile or the impression of the pain, you can say, or say pain means it is called the grimace. On the face, if there is an impression of pain, this is stretching the two sides of your angles of the mouth. This is by virtue of risorius muscle. The second muscle over the angle of mouth after elevator of the angle of mouth, this is called the levator anguli oris, this is called the risorius muscle. And the third one, you see this risorius is giving this impression. Here this is risorius. The third muscle is this, which is depressing the angle of the mouth here. Depressing the angle of mouth means it will be like you can say it will be like this. You see sadness. This is the muscle of sadness, you can say, and this is called the depressor. Is called the depressor. Of what? Of angle. Which angle? Mouth angle, means say. Angle of what? Is mouth. This is called the depressor anguli oris. This is a depressor anguli oris which you are actually seeing here. So this is depressor anguli oris. Means you have seen by now upper lip muscle is called what? Say levator. I say levator labia superiorus iliac nasa, levator labia superiorus, zygomaticus minor, zygomaticus major. Four muscles are here over to the lip, and obviously four on this side also. You have seen here the elevator of the angle of mouth is called the levator anguli oris. This is risorius, and now it is the depressor anguli oris also. So we have got three angle muscles and three here also. At the same time, now we have got the lower lip muscles also. Out of this, the first muscle which is here, this is called as the depressor labia inferioris. Watch this. So see lower lip depressors now. Out of this depressor, the first is depressor labia inferioris. See, this is depressor labia inferioris. This muscle is green color because this is the depressor of the lower lip. Depressor lower lip, lip labia, but which lip? Inferior. So called the depressor labia inferioris. This is first muscle. Then this will give you actual idea, like you say impression like this here also. But if for example you are doing the elevation of your upper lip and depression of your lower lip, this will come. This is called a combined action of the levator labia superioris and depressor anguli inferioris, both working together. That I gave you idea earlier also. Depressor anguli oris, this is the muscle of sadness, like levator anguli oris was the muscle of happiness. Risorius was the muscle of the false smile. Zygomaticus major minor was the muscles of the true smile, especially zygomaticus major. Sadness, see this sad face. Then the muscle which is present here, this is called the mentalis muscle. Mentalis. This mentalis muscle will give you the impression like this, you see, like this. This is the impression of doubt. Means I doubt whether this happens or not. You see the doubt. This means it's doubt, skepticism, and you are not sure. And doubt, this mentalis is the muscle of the doubt. So you can say this mentalis. So this muscle, you see, this is called the mentalis muscle, and this is the impression given by this. Doubt impression is being given by this. See, various impressions given by various muscles. That's why we call them muscles of facial expression. So which expressions they appear on the face due to certain muscles. I told you that previously also. If it is present here, this muscle is called the procerus muscle. This will give you the pensive mood, thoughtful mood. This muscle lifting this forcefully upper eyelids up here, giving the impression of the horror and surprise. At the same time, certain other muscles you see that zygomaticus major and minor, they are giving the true smile. Risorius is giving you the false smile. Elevator of upper lip, elevator of the angle, this was giving you happy face. Depressor anguli oris, it was giving you sadness. False smile was the by the risorius. These muscles are some muscles which you are actually doing, and this mentalis muscle, which is actually giving you impression of doubt also. These are the muscles which are working on here, and the one of the muscles, you see, very long muscle, it will actually be in the superficial fascia. Like all the muscles of superficial fascia, all muscles of your facial expression, they lie in the superficial fascia, but these are very long strips of muscles which in fact are starting here from the closer to your inferior border of the body of the mandible here, and these long strips in fact are going embedded within the superficial fascia and will reach up to even the pectoralis region also. You can see these muscles here, and their contraction will help depression of the mandible, and they are helping to some extent in even the chewing also, but they are not included in muscle of mastication. This muscle is called the platysma muscle. This platysma muscle will give you the impression like this. You see here this type of inflammation. You see this type of a platysma will give you the impression like this. You see stretching like this. This is the impression of stress and tension. This is given by the platysma. That is why you see if the platysma there, so at the time when you are doing any neck surgery, the incisions are not given transversely like here, they will cut almost all the fibers of the platysma. Usually incisions are given longitudinally along the axis of the fibers of forward direction of the fibers of the muscles. And this is not true here only, but the cleavage lines of the skin you already know. Always the incisions are given along the long axis of, you see, the parallel to the long axis of the cleavage lines here, not transversely across, because they will cut the collagen fibers. Here they will cut the muscular fibers, and they will give you here a very bad and ugly scars. Platysma, tension and stress impression it will give. Now come to the mouth closers. For gentle closing and forceful closing, the muscle is same, just like orbicularis oculi. Here is the orbicularis oris. Orbicularis oris, you see this orbicularis oris, means these are some slips which you are actually watching here. These are called intrinsic slips. You call them incisive slips also. And these incisive slips which we are being actually telling you here, these incisive slips, if you see them, they are very adherent here to the underlying bone, here to the maxilla and down here to the mandible also. They are coming back here. Because here is some depression, so overlying skin and some less subcutaneous tissue here. So at the center of your upper lip there is some depression. There is a longitudinal ridge, or there is a depressed area is there, longitudinal depressed area. This depressed area in the middle is called the philtrum with PH. Phil means love. This is called the love spot also. This is philtrum with PHIL, like phobia and philia. You see this phil means for love. Is love is called the philtrum. Is called the philtrum. This is called the, and this philtrum is present here in the center of the upper lip here, because of the fibers from the two sides of the incisive slips. In fact, they don't meet each other. But it's not just this is your orbicularis oris. There is the other extrinsic fibers also, which have been in fact donated to this by means of other muscles which are present here, like zygomatic levator, zygomaticus and all others muscles. They are donating the fibers here. These are called the extrinsic slips. Just like this was a palpebral part, this is kind of intrinsic, this is the orbital part. Same is here, intrinsic, then is the extrinsic. The bulk of the lip is formed by these extrinsic fibers. This whole is your orbicularis oris muscle, intrinsic slips, and then is the extrinsic slips. Now intrinsic and extrinsic slips, if you see that extrinsic slips come from where? From obviously the fibers which are already present here and there, but the major contributions come from another muscle which we will discuss here. It is called the buccinator muscle. This is the buccinator, means on the two sides of orbicularis oris is the buccinator muscle, and buccinator is giving actually the donation to these extrinsic fibers. The contribution is almost 70% or more than that is the actually contribution coming from the buccinator, and buccinator means is giving the fibers here, for example, like the fibers are coming here. These fibers which you are actually seeing, out of this you can divide them into the two halves, upper, lower. Upper should go to the upper lip, lower should come to the lower lip. It is not like this. Upper can be divided again into two quarters, lower also in two quarters. So very interesting here in this situation. Upper one quarter, the uppermost one quarter, it will surely will going to the upper lip. And similarly on the other side. Lowest one quarter, it will surely go to the lower lip. On the other side also. This is the extrinsic slip I am telling you of the orbicularis oculi, which is forming the bulk of the lips. See here, but the middle two quarters, you see that out of this the lower should go to the upper and upper is coming to the lower. So here is the decussation, here is the partial decussation, kind of a chiasma. You see that is will be here is coming out. Due to this, you see here there will be fibrous nodular I say appearance, you will see here, that you can feel just under the angle of your mouth from the oral side. If you will actually touch or you can say you feel it with the tip of your tongue, you will feel there is some nodular appearance, some nodular thing you will actually appear, and this is called the modulus. On two sides you will see such thing here, and this will actually bind these fibers in such a way that the angle should not break from here. You see this, it's like a buttonhole fissure will be formed between the two lips. This is called, so this is the orbicularis oris muscle, and the orbicularis oris muscle will give you, you see this is causing the tightness of the lips here. This is called the pursing of the lips. Pursing means tightness, closing them, pursing of the lips. This is here. Whistling, whistling expression is also when you are whistling and making your lips like a rounded here with the hole in the middle. This is actually called also the whistling. So whistling will be also done here by means of this muscle. So see, this is orbicularis oris muscle. So whistling and blowing. For blowing is just not in a rounded way you will actually do this, but at the same time intraoral pressure has to be increased also due to the contraction of the buccinator muscle. So blowing is the action, or you say inflating the balloon even. This is the action, something that is being carried out by increasing the intraoral pressure by means of buccinator and bringing the air out through a very small hole by creating or by making your lips in a rounded fashion with the hole in the center, so that the air should actually go slowly here, so the intraoral pressure can be created here. With the big mouth open here, you cannot blow, because when the oral fissure is very big, intraoral pressure cannot be maintained. When intraoral pressure cannot be maintained, blowing action cannot be done. That is why the hole that is allowing the air out has to be narrowed down, so the intraoral pressure can be created, but the intraoral pressure cannot be created until the muscles in the cheeks, they are contracting, and this is the muscle that is called the buccinator muscle. Buccinator, it is the blower, it is called the trumpeter also. Blowing the trumpet. See, this is orbicularis oris muscle, purely it is actually done like this here. But for the forceful closing, I told you that extrinsic fibers. For gentle closing, these incisive fibers here. These are some muscles which are actually, so you can say the closer is just one, okay, with the assistance of certain other muscles in the buccinator, but the openers are many. Openers many means in the center there was levator labia superioris iliac nasa, then the little later was the levator labia superioris, then little later was the zygomaticus major, then is the minor, and then these are the four muscles, then what the three muscles come for your purpose of I say for the angle is the levator anguli oris, then is the rasorius, then was the depressor anguli oris. So three more, so 4 plus 3 is the 7, and then the 3 were for the lower lip also. This is called depressor labia inferioris, mentalis and platysma. So 3 plus 3 plus 4, 4, 3 and 3, 6 means 10 muscles on one side and 10 muscles on the other side, means your lips are being controlled here by in all 20 muscles against just one muscle for the closing, that is the orbicularis oris muscle. And this is the buccinator which we told you previously also. This is the buccinator which is here, and this is contributing too much for here. The buccinator muscle is very important because it is giving the tone to your cheeks. Tone to your cheeks means say when you are chewing something, you see that you are putting the things in the center of your mouth, but you are not chewing with the center. You are chewing with the molar teeth here. So that means the food should in fact be propelled here, should be pushed towards the cheeks here, towards the molar teeth. So the tongue will push them towards the molar teeth. When it is being in fact pushed towards the molar teeth, so this food or the bolus of this food will try to accumulate here in the pouch of the cheek here. So it will not be grinded or be cut by the molar teeth here. So it will remain in the pouch, but it will not be allowed in the pouch of the cheek. The reason is that because the tone of the buccinator muscle will not allow that to stay there. So buccinator tries to push them towards the medial side, then tongue will try to push them towards the lateral side. So neither it will go to the medial nor it will come to the lateral. So it will be trapped in the middle and it will be chopped by the masticating, I say, by the movement of the upper teeth with the lower teeth. So two jaws are being moved here. Actually upper jaw is not being moved, lower jaw is being moved and will be striking against the upper jaw. So in between the upper and lower molar teeth, it will be crushed here. The food will be cut and crushed also. So that means when mastication, you are doing the mastication or chewing, buccinator is very, very important in assisting the chewing. Though the assisting muscle, basically primary muscle of mastication is the muscles which move the mandible. But if for example mandible is moving and the food is stored here and will get refuge here in the pouch of the buccinator or pouch of the paralyzed, if the buccinator is paralyzed, so pouch of your cheek is present already there and food gets stored there, it will not be trapped between the upper and the lower jaws here, it will not be crushed here. Mastication is not possible. That's why the buccinator is labeled as accessory muscle of mastication, but is never counted as a muscle of mastication. The reason is that because mastication muscles are all supplied here by the mandibular division and trigeminal nerve, buccinator is supplied here by the facial nerve. So see here Risorius is working, at the same time depressor labia inferioris is also doing this. So this kind of impression or this kind of expression is being done here by this also. Now if for example any time facial palsy we have told already that when the facial muscle is damaged, especially facial muscle is damaged during its intracranial course. Intracranial course, if you remember, in the base of skull you have got the mastoid process and then you have got the styloid process. In between there is the foramen whose name is stylomastoid foramen, and it is coming from here, facial nerve, and then it enters into the parotid gland. But before it exits from the stylomastoid foramen, it travels a long way in the canal, that is called the facial canal, and before that it will be present here within the internal acoustic meatus. So inside the internal acoustic meatus, within the petrous part of temporal bone, where the ear is also lying. So that means in the petrous part of temporal bone, in the facial canal, these are in fact the bony spaces here, and in the bony spaces, if it undergoes here, if it catches any infection or any inflammation is there, for example any viral neuritis is there, this will undergo expansion, this will undergo swelling. But because this is a bony canal will not allow the nerve to actually get expanded here, so it will be compressed and will be compressed. So entire course of your facial nerve, this will be in fact under pressure here. Under pressure means conduction will not be there. So whatever the facial nerve is doing, especially the muscles from the same sided, all muscles of the face except levator palpebris superior, all will be paralyzed. All will be paralyzed. You can say paralysis is there. If the paralysis is there, you can say right from above, fronto-occipitalis is not working. So if somebody will look up here, furrowing of the forehead will not take place on the same side. See this smooth forehead on this side, wrinkles on the other side. Means this will be left sided facial palsy, number one. Number two will be orbiculus oculi will not be working, so blinking will not take place. Here the eyelid can be dropped down here and here. Actually he has by his effort he has already closed his eyes. This is after repair. This is already closed his eyes, you see that, but this eye cannot be closed, so blinking is not possible. No blinking, and the tears will keep on dribbling from lateral side here. So eye will be dry, and due to dryness there will be infection, there will be even ulceration also. So in the facial palsy already you have seen, if the patient looks up here without moving his head up and looking at the roof of the room, furrows will be created here, transverse furrows will be created. This is the furrowing of the forehead, but this will not be available when the frontalis is paralyzed. You see on the left side it is smooth. Number two, when he is actually closing his eyes, so blinking is not possible. The reason, orbiculus oculi is not working. So it remains open. It remains open. So it will not just be blinking will be inability to blink the eyes on that side, but at the same time if the blinking is not possible, so the tears which are being created here, being secreted here by the lacrimal gland on the lateral side, cannot spread to the medial side where the lacrimal sac is present. So it will not be possible to spread the tears. So tears will keep on dribbling from the lateral side, number one. Another will be that the eyeball will not be moistened because the lacrimal secretion will be lost from this lateral side, will not come to moisten or will be spreading over the entire eyeball here. So the eyeball will remain dry, and this dryness will lead here to the laceration, or say even inflammation of the cornea, this is called the keratitis, or even the conjunctiva, this is called the conjunctivitis. Not only this, but we told you that
Here because the buccinator is paralyzed. On this side the buccinator is paralyzed, you see buccinator is paralyzed, so this cheek in fact will be like a pouch. So when the food will be entered, you see food will enter into the oral cavity, the tongue will try to push it to the lateral side, and here in the pouch the food will be stored here. The reason, because the paralysis of the buccinator will allow it to stay there. So when there will be chewing between the two jaws or between the molar teeth of the two jaws, the food will not be trapped and will not be grinded and crushed here. So the food will actually not be grinded, so chewing will not be possible despite all the muscle of mastication are intact. So the buccinator sometimes is called the accessory muscle of mastication also. It is not called as the muscle of mastication. The reason, because it is not supplied here by the mandibular division or trigeminal nerve, because muscles of mastication all are supplied by the mandibular division or trigeminal nerve. This is an accessory muscle of mastication, but I can say it is a necessary muscle. The reason is that because despite all primary muscles of mastication intact, mastication will probably not be possible until the buccinator is working. And there will be, and the buccinator is not working, so that side area will be weak, face area will be weak. So these areas are weak. Due to the weak muscles, you see that there will be drooping of the facial drooping will be there also. This is also because of the orbicularis oris muscle paralyzed here. And here, because the saliva that is in fact being secreted here by the salivary glands cannot be held inside the oral cavity for a too long, so it will be dribbling from here. This is called dribbling of the saliva, and for this you call it drooling. Drooling means a constant drop wise dropping of the saliva. This is called drooling. So drooling, this is because of the paralysis of buccinator muscle. You cannot blow even. If anybody will say yes, okay, try to blow, so that cheek will be very weak because the buccinator is not working on that side. Now whistling is not possible because orbicularis oris muscle is also paralyzed here. So this is called the facial paralysis. So facial paralysis, no furrowing of the head, I say no furrowing of the forehead, no blinking, tear dropping. Another is the no whistling, no blowing, mastication very difficult to be performed, and there is a facial drooping also, drooling as well. All these things are happening in the facial paralysis, most probably because of the facial nerve affection within the bony canals, especially the facial canal. And if it is happening like here, you will call this as the Bell's palsy. Bell is the name of a scientist, Bell's palsy. There are a lot of conditions related here to the Bell. Bell is a neurologist which has in fact discovered many things in the human being related to the neurology, especially you see the long thoracic nerve. Its name is the Bell's nerve, long thoracic nerve leading to the winged scapula, and it is called the Bell's nerve, the nerve of the Bell. So this is called the Bell's palsy also, another neurological condition attributed to this neurologist. It's called the Bell's palsy. So this was your class related to the facial muscles, are famous with the name of facial muscles. We can say muscles of the facial expression here. Thank you very much.